Hello, everybody. Welcome to the launch here on virtual reality, but actually it is not virtual at all because we're launching the Manifesto of the Parlement of the Future. The Parlement of the Future was an initiative of Amsterdam's Netwerk Democratie, which is an initiative that is trying to have our democracy ready for the 21st century. That means a democracy in which citizens, with the help of technology, can actively contribute. Founding director of Netwerk Democratie, Josien Pietersen, present in this presentation, will accent a little bit on the process, whom all were involved, and explain how long it's been taking. Then we are very excited that there's a few people here that are receiving the manifesto. That is Vice Commissioner of the European Commission, Dubravka Šuica, who is also responsible for the conference on the future of Europe to be kicking off in September, which was intended as a 2-year-long process where citizens would actually have an active say on the future of the European Union and its democratic processes. We have Rutger Groot-Wassink, Alderman for Democratic Renewal from Amsterdam, joining us by video message. And then there is Caroline Combe and Bas Swiers, both active in the process and working for democratic process in the city of Amsterdam. I'll introduce them a bit later in a more proper way. Reacting to the manifesto. Before all this, and most important, we have a few of the people that were actively contributing to the coming of age of the manifesto present here, and they will be introducing a bit of the manifesto to all of us present here. My name is Friso Wiersum. I am working for the European Cultural Foundation, not accidentally also based in Amsterdam, but working European and a little more across the borders of the European Union. And I was kindly invited to welcome you all and pass the microphone to a few people present in this presentation. As mentioned, firstly, Josien Pietersen. Maybe you would like to say a few words on why Netwerk Democratie came into being, what you have been doing over the last few years, and why this manifesto is so needed for European democracy.
Hi all, thank you for giving me the floor here, Friso. I will tell a little bit, I will keep it very short because we have a very full program, a little bit about network democracy, but of course we did not do this on our own, but we took the initiative to organize the Parliament of the Future. And we thought about that last year. We thought it was very important to give young people the floor and to make not only a manifesto that was thinking about their own position in Europe, but also thinking about future generation. I think that was quite spectacular also about the process. And I know that also our alderman from Amsterdam will go into that later and gives us also opportunity, I think, to support the policy on this in the city. So that might be very interesting. Network Democracy was founded in 2011 as an organization that is committed to build a resilient democracy in which citizens are better involved and in which sometimes, with the help of technology, and sometimes not, they can actively contribute. This seems very simple when you hear it, but this can be very radical and complicated. We focus on local level, and that is also what you see today in the program, but also on a national, European and international level. We've initiated this process for young people and for future generations. And I especially would like to thank all the students that did so much work, because we had 6 meetings, and some of them were really hard-working meetings for them. But also during this quite strange time, the Corona time, in which there were sometimes no classes, a lot of classes were online. Everything was just finding out how to work. And the students were present all the time and working on the manifesto with us. Especially, it's exciting to have Dubravka Sucha here today, the Vice President of the European Commission. And I'm also very happy that she will receive the manifesto later today digitally, but still. She's responsible for democracy, but she's also very much focusing on participatory democracy, bottom-up democracy. So I think she will tell us a little bit more about that. And then I would really like to thank the alderman of Amsterdam, Rutger Groot-Wassink, that I had the opportunity to interview earlier this week about his commitment to this manifesto, and you will see it later. But last and not least, I would also really like to thank Guido Snel and Sandra Bos from the HVA, so the University of Applied Sciences, and the UvA, the University of Amsterdam, the Program of Debating Europe, because they invested a lot of work also in this. And besides that, I of course want to thank all the other people that are part today of the program that will receive the manifesto, but also all the speakers we had. And there were very, very inspiring speakers in the last few weeks and months that gave the opportunity to the students to really think, yeah, you could say out of the box. And they will go into that later too. So that is it for now, Friso. And thank you.
Thank you, Josine, for introducing Netwerk Democratie in such an elaborate way. Two small additional questions. It says that you were drafting this manifesto with 40 people. 40 people in a virtual meeting. As you mentioned, you had 6 meetings. How did you do so? Because it's not easy to have 10 people working on a paper together, let alone 40 in virtual space.
Yes, actually, that was very interesting because we first had speakers giving introductions from different perspectives. And after that, we worked in working groups, at least students worked in working groups. And we had also found out that you could work very good with Slido, in which you could ask questions to the speakers, so that there were several opportunities to participate in the process, but it was for us also searching. So actually we really got into it during the weeks, but the first time it was quite exciting to work in this way, because we were not used to doing something like this completely online.
And then let me ask the students that are present here, and there's 5 of them that will be introducing the manifesto. Sam, Milena, Francis, Ashley, Robert. Did you also like this working online, or would you have actually preferred to be sitting in the city council hall as it was the plan originally? If you just like the virtual spaces better, maybe put your hand up. And if you would have preferred meeting real time, just don't do anything. So 3 of them actually preferring online meetings. Then, of course, I'm going to ask you follow-up questions, as you can understand. May I ask you, Robert, I will unmute you. Why did you actually prefer meeting online?
Well, firstly, it's an innovative way of meeting online. We're all coming from different parts of the globe. And to get to know each other, we would need to get to a specific location, take a plane and get there. And that's not the real future way of looking creating things together. And so this was a new thing, and I definitely like to get out of my comfort zone in a way. And although I'm not tech savvy, and also it's hard to really have a right conversation on Zoom with so many people, I feel like it was it was definitely a pleasant one.
Thank you very much. Then maybe you will mute yourself again, just for the safety of the conversation. Thanks. Then, as Josine also said, we have a very packed program because we try to round this up in 1 hour again. And second part on this presentation is actually the 5 of you present here, and thanks for joining, reading out those excerpts from the manifesto that are the ones that and the Vice President of the European Commission and the Alderman will be reacting to. And the names, are they in order? Is it Sam starting? Yeah. Well, maybe then unmute yourselves. Sam, floor is yours. And maybe also say where you are based in the moment, because this is nice to know for the people.
Yes, sure. Hello, guys, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Sam Southern. I'm presenting live from Amsterdam at the moment, from a house. And yeah, I'm the first speaker of the Parlement of the Future. And as a beginning of the manifesto, we want to talk about strengthening fundamental rights. And as a Parliament of the Future, we want a future which obviously strengthens fundamental rights. And first of all, we call for a ban on general discrimination, which basically entails that the rights of future generations must also be taken into account in the legislative process from now on. And the Dutch Constitution and the EU Charter of Fundamental Rights, which already prohibit discrimination on the basis of gender, race, and religion, for instance, we think must also include generation on a prohibition of discrimination in the future. And methods of generational assessment must also be systematic so that future generations are also assured that they are being represented in the legislative process. And for a future that strengthens fundamental rights, we also call for future generations delegates, which should be implemented in every local municipality, which are delegates younger than 25 years old, representing younger generations, and together with that also future generations. And this will also improve the collaboration and cooperation on a more broad European level and on a local level at the same time. For a future that strengthens fundamental rights, additionally, we call for a healthy environment, obviously, as this must be a fundamental right for both current and future generations. This must include things such as green spaces, pedestrian spaces, and especially clean air within urban areas, as we have seen that this is a big issue at the moment in the European Union as well. And it must be acknowledged not only by national governments, but by the EU itself on a more general and broad level. For a future that strengthens fundamental rights, we call also for education for everyone. And this means that all generations, and again, future generations, should be entitled to access to necessary teaching materials. And this actually entails the next point, because for a future that strengthens fundamental rights, we also call for fundamental rights online. So, for instance, like digital teaching materials online, but also, especially now with the corona situation going on and us living mainly in a digital society at the moment, rights online must be valued just as highly as they are valued offline at the moment. And they thus need to be integrated into our digital world. So that's the first part, which I was presenting. Thank you guys for listening. And the next one to talk would be Milena. The floor is yours.
Hi everyone. Milena's speaking from France, and I'll be presenting the manifesto for a future based on commons and democracy. First of all, we call for more democratic initiatives, moving towards an ever-inclusive and participatory society. Local, bottom-up, and democratic initiatives must be encouraged in European cities. We also call for community meetings, The municipality must encourage and implement community meetings to facilitate social interactions that will lead to group action. This creates the space and incentive to build commons, which empowers citizens and prioritize socio-economic well-being. Thirdly, we call for collaboration between local organizations. Efforts must be made to collaborate on smaller scales and in areas such as knowledge production on a European level. This will improve not only their quality, but also accessibility and cooperation across the organizations. We also call for municipal support to local initiatives. The growing movement of citizens co-creating policy and collaboratively designing public spaces must receive more support through financial measures, such as lowering taxes or offering funding from municipalities. Additionally, policy measures should enable practices of civic co-governance of resources and space. Finally, for a future based on commons and democracy, we call for citizen-focused spatial planning. Local initiatives must have the opportunity to use space in a multifunctional way instead of arranging space sectorally. In this manner, unused areas in community neighborhoods will be given more potential. Thanks a lot. And now I give the floor to Francis, right?
Yes. Hi. Hello, everyone. I'm Francis, and I'm speaking from Italy. Now I'll bring forward fundamental rights for a future built on climate justice. First step, we called for balancing priorities, meaning that economic interests must no longer outweigh the importance of sustainable and climate-respecting policies. They require at least the same level of validity. Secondly, we called for representing future generations, where future generations must always be taken into account when writing laws, and regulations must not be adopted if they take more from the environment than they give back. Also, environmentally harmful regulations, corporations, and activities must compensate financially or physically. We also called for smaller goals, so that the 2050 climate goal must be split into multiple short-term goals, making them easier and more urgent to fulfill. We called for small-scale cooperation, and indeed, in order to achieve the short-term goals, collaboration must occur on a smaller scale. This will hopefully spill over to bigger scales and improve regional partnership. Furthermore, we call for limiting corporations. Influence of major polluting companies must be curtailed in science and policy production. Above all, corporations must be held responsible for the damage they cause in other countries, at least financially, for example, by paying taxes. Lastly, for a future built on climate justice, we called for standards in product import. We must impose the same environmental standards on third country importers as on European producers, or otherwise refuse import. This will force improvement of working methods worldwide. Okay, now I'll give the floor to Ashley.
Hi, I'm Ashley. I'm in Amsterdam. And I'll be presenting our calls for a future in which education brings empowerment. So first, we call for public education. Public education by institutions must be shielded from privatization. Legislation is necessary to keep education away from unwanted influence, for instance, outside private funding. Second, we call for free basic education. Every student has the right to traditional as well as more specific practice-based learning that teaches skills to cope in our complex societies. This targets the inequality of our society by providing comprehensive access to both basic and specialized education. Third, we call for the involvement of students. Within every educational institution, all students must have the opportunity to be represented in a student council or union and to take part in decision-making. Thus, students experience deeper engagement and become more involved in their education. And finally, for a future of empowering education, we call for empowering projects. There should be wider recognition of, or a quality label that enables equal valuation and acceptance of alternative learning methods, such as practice-based learning, when compared with regular certificates. More marginal educational programs, such as private and online learning sessions, must be acknowledged at the European scale. This will level the playing field not only among students, but between non-students as well. And finally, I'll give the floor to Robert.
Hi, I'm Robert, based in Amsterdam. I'll be presenting the future that upholds freedom in a digital world. Firstly, we will call for privacy. The internet should be governed as a public space, meaning there must be an opt-out of data collection. Non-functional cookies and tracking should be limited, and the refusal of cookies altogether, while still allowing access to the website, must be easy to accomplish. We call for data protection. People whose data is collected must be understand that happens with their data and be able to easily access where it is stored. Data collection should become increasingly transparent for everyone to be aware of. Trace and possibly erase certain data that is collected from them. Citizens should also have the option to own their data by storing it on their personal devices. We call for transparent news. The power of private media companies to cherry pick news and information must be transparent and held publicly accountable. Alternative media sources should be visible so the public has the possibility to access news, potentially showing other viewpoints. We call for a democratic internet. Citizens must be included when designing public technology, especially in the smart city. Hereby, citizens' interests are safeguarded in the creation of public digital spaces. We hope our calls to action will be taken into consideration in future policy, making on the city as well as the European level. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Quite a list of recommendations and suggestions. Mrs. Suka, may I give the floor to you and ask you to perhaps start with the 5 recommendations that you think are immediately applicable to policy making on a European Union level, and then perhaps also mention 5 that you would like to realize in the upcoming years, because it is quite a list that the students have compiled.
First of all, thank you for inviting me to this interesting forum. And thank you, Parliament of the Future, for honor of giving me later your manifesto. So your work is really, and your vision, both are truly impressive. The topics you focus on show that you are invested in future and also in your present, which is also important. So congratulations to all of you. This is truly a wonderful opportunity for me to listen to the voices of the future, and I thank the Network Democracy for organizing this important event. If we talk about the empowerment of young people, it has increasing importance in the European Union. I know this because I'm part of it. We can only have a vibrant democracy in the European Union if young people are actively contributing to it. As Vice President for Democracy and Demography in the European Commission, part of my role is to listen to citizens. More and more citizens and increasing numbers of young people want to have a voice in policy making. This can only enrich our debates and its outcomes. I will talk to you today about your role as young people in the Conference on the Future of Europe. But first, let me say a few words about democracy. I will later say a few words about demography and our child strategy, which are also part of my portfolio. I will also say a few words on solidarity and COVID-19. But let me first tell you a few words about democracy.
I'm shortly intervening, if I may, because will you also touch on the outcomes and presentations of the manifesto?
Okay, of course. Of course, I was listening carefully. So democracy is having a hard time these days, and people feel left behind. And who do people blame? They blame democracy itself. But democracy is the best invention, as you know. I believe there is nothing better. Not even the technology that is so popular with the young digital natives today. You can perhaps live without your mobile phones, but you cannot live or fulfill your potential without democracy. I hope so. And democracy cannot fulfill its potential without you. However, the fact that people blame democracy shows how important it is in their lives at all levels, from the local to the regional, national, and of course, European level. Democracy is a word often used, but its meaning is not always clear. You will have seen this in your studies. A working definition could describe democracy as a means of collective decision-making where all are equal. Pure democracy is sometimes described as terrifying, especially in terms of the tyranny of the majority. I'm sure you are all familiar with the works of Alexis de Tocqueville, but we do not live in a pure democracy. Our representative democracy has worked well, but it is not without fault. Some say it's not responsive enough, or is it too mechanical or not inclusive enough? Should we get rid of it? Certainly not. Your manifesto makes that clear. We in the Commission understand that citizens' trust in democracy cannot and should not ever be taken for granted. Citizens have been asking for greater participation in policymaking. We must listen. It can help to reinforce democracy in Union. Now is the time to put innovative tools to work for democracy and the citizens, starting with the conference on the future of Europe. Crises often force us to come up with new ideas. Our recent report on the impact on demographic change highlights how our society has been transformed. We therefore need new thinking. We cannot solve new problems with outdated ways of looking at the world. Politics has changed. We are no longer business as usual. An exercise like the Conference on the Future of Europe is a sign of new thinking at European level. It complements representative democracy and can increase trust in our democratic institutions. The conference will be a key platform to listen, learn, and help find solutions for citizens. It will help ensure that our systems of government and participation are dynamic, resilient, inclusive, and represent the diversity of society. We need to address the root causes of problems and avoid a geography of discontent. To be clear, the conference is not about one particular personality, institution, region, or member state. The conference belongs to all of us, from citizens to civil society, to businesses, to national parliaments, regions and local authorities, to universities and think tanks, and of course, politicians and decision makers. We need to strengthen our representative democracy by offering an opportunity for enhanced deliberative democracy. We need to consolidate this partnership approach. Here, the European Parliament, the Council, and Commission must lay the ground for the conference. Now, Council, as you know, last week has adopted its position, as have the European Parliament and Commission. We can take the next steps to launch the conference. We need to agree on joint declaration by European Parliament, Council, and Commission, setting the structure, scope, and main principles of the conference, and establish principles for those wanting to become our partners in this joint exercise. I look forward to the joint declaration and, of course, to launching the conference on the future of Europe shortly thereafter, presumably September. As you know, on 17th June, the Commission published its first ever report on the impact of demographic change. This is significant because demographic change is about people and their lives. For the European Union, demographic change in real terms means an aging population, low birth rates, and decreasing working age population. These changes significantly affect society. Addressing demographic change is key to building a fairer and more resilient society. I work with all my colleagues, commissioners, to ensure that our policies take account of the implications and the impact of these factors. The report relies on hard evidence and comparable data at European and regional level. It brings out the major impacts of demographic change, such as an economic growth, labor markets, health and long-term care needs for public finances. We now have a valuable reference for our current and future work. Please Visit our dedicated website where you can find videos, infographics, and of course the report itself. So we launched it on 17th of June. But this is not all. In the coming months, we will present the Green Paper on Aging, looking at issues like longer and healthier lives and at intergenerational solidarity and loneliness. I hope you have had the opportunity to benefit from having grandparents. It is a valuable relationship. They benefit from you as you keep them up to date with the world. You listen and learn from their experiences. Both sides can build on the positive outcomes and interaction between generations. You can also help your grandparents combat loneliness, and this is key for our mental health and overall well-being. And we will also publish a long-term vision for rural areas designed to help rural areas meet challenges such as depopulation, connectivity, and limited access to services. Young people are leaving their villages and towns. Young people cannot set up business in their homes because the connectivity is not good enough. We cannot allow this to continue. Both reports are planned for adoption in 2021. These issues that both these policy documents address are made more visible by COVID-19. A key message to you today is that the COVID-19 pandemic shows us the importance of solidarity. The European Commission proposed a plan to lead us out of the crisis and into sustainable long-term economic growth based on a green transition and digital transformation. I was listening to you carefully when you said that it is better to have it online and not to travel, which means that you are in favor of green transition. And of course, digital transformation is also very important, that it was proved during this pandemic. The Commission recently announced a comprehensive package for European recovery with its overall budget of 1.85 trillion euros. This will help Europe to recover. Major initiatives like Next Generation EU, look at the title, Next Generation EU. It will boost the European Union budget in the first crucial years of the recovery and contribute together with the reinforced budget for 2021 to 2027 to making it sustainable, inclusive, and fair. Together, we will exit the crisis. The Conference on the Future of Europe is an excellent tool to engage and involve all Europeans to listen and to inform. And now, to conclude, dear young ladies and gentlemen, I end by reminding you all why we are having the Conference on the Future of Europe. It is for the current and next generations of Europeans. You know that children make up 20% of European Union population, meaning approximately 90 million people in European Union are children. President von der Leyen declared that we need to invest more in the future of our children, and we need to act. We are preparing a new comprehensive European Union strategy for the rights of the child. This strategy will call for the active participation of children in the European Union's democratic life, thereby strengthening the role of children in our union's present and future. Therefore,
may I add, what do you think about including the future generations into policy-making proposals as suggested by the students here?
I think that children who are future generations, they should be involved in the Conference on the Future of Europe, and we'll find a forum for them to be included. If I may tell you, we need a structured children's dialogues, and they will be a part of they will be an integral part of the conference. If I may tell you something from my experience, and when I was mayor of Dubrovnik 10 years ago, at that time, I used to involve children. We had children city council, children mayor, and they were allowed to react, and we were listening to their voices too, because it was very important. It was a small community, but also important. And you, young people here today, I think you have to be an integral part of the Conference on the Future of Europe. Bring your manifesto. This is my appeal. Bring your manifesto to the Conference on the Future of Europe. Organize events around the conference in your universities, in debating societies, in your villages, cities, and regions. Share your manifesto and your ideas. The world needs your ideas and they deserve to be heard. I'm answering your question. When our online digital platform is launched, make sure you visit it and make your contributions online. It will be launched soon. We were waiting, as I told you, we were waiting for the joint declaration among 3 institutions, Council, Commission, Parliament. Now it's over. So we are now working on digital platform and I'm looking forward to September. Together, citizens and I include young people and children here and democratic institutions on the basis of solidarity and our common present and future. This will find ways to give Europeans a greater say on how the European Union works for them. Let us have the courage to embrace this innovative opportunity and make success of the Conference on the Future of Europe. Now I want to thank all of you. I want to thank you very much. And might I congratulate you again on your manifesto and the bright future it has for all of us and for you especially. Thank you once again.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Vice President. And then I'm going to ask 2 questions that might be a bit more difficult to answer. Would there be ways for you to promote the manifesto within your circles if you're launching the platform for the future conference? How could you bring forward the findings by the students among your fellow policymakers?
I'm sure there will be a space for this, but as I told you, a conference, as you know, we as a commission, we are honest broker between all the institutions regarding Conference of the Future. Parliament and European Parliament is very important. National parliaments are more important. Regional parliament are also very important. Local councils are important, more important than ever. And NGOs and civil society. So each and everyone has to participate. But my goal and my position will be to try to bring all these ideas from all these levels to European level, to European institutions, in order to have these voices heard on these institutions, on these levels. So this will be my goal. This is the reason why we are launching digital platform, in order to gather all the ideas there and try to somehow translate them into concrete policies, either legislative or recommendations. Let's see how it will work, but we need some time to organize ourselves.
Thank you very much. And then on behalf of the students and Netwerk Democratie, I can only say that we hope to see as much of the recommendations as formulated by the students copied into the future manifesto as developed after the Conference on the Future of Europe. Thank you very much. I believe a manifesto is on its way to you by the old-fashioned mail, and you might have it digitally already. Do you have a paper copy? Voila. So that is the official presentation. A small round of applause by all of us. Thank you very much. And you also stress the importance of co-policy making on local levels and the transference of knowledge on the local level to the European level. I think that we have a small video ready by somebody who is actually elderman for involving citizens in policymaking at a more local level in the city of Amsterdam. So I am looking into Netwerk Democratie, Anne, who's about to start the video.
Are very relevant, and I was very, well, not surprised.
Groot Wassing, we would really like to hear your first reaction to the manifesto.
Well, thank you very much for having me, and I have to say that I was really thrilled by the manifesto. I think it pinpoints actual discussions that are very relevant, And I was very, well, not surprised, but enthusiastic about the manifesto and the topics that were pinpointed there.
I'm happy to hear that, because the young people that worked on it did really, I think, also quite a good job, and spent also quite some time writing it down, and were very committed. So I would like to hear, what do you think is the importance of young Amsterdammers to speak up about the future of the life in the city, and relate to these topics? What can you elaborate a little bit about that?
Well, if I think that if I look at the topics that are in the manifesto, like climate justice, digital rights, and so on, democratization, I think that it's crucial that young people engage themselves, and I think that it's crucial for a city, for every city, not only for Amsterdam, but for every city, that young people take a stand, and that they engage themselves in policy making, and engage themselves in trying to build a better future. So in that way, I find the manifesto an expression of devoteness to their everyday life in the urban context. And I think that one of the main challenges is also for us, for me as policymaker, for me as politician, to see how we can even increase the importance of the voice of young people. I mean, we have a youth council, a youth mayor, and that's great, and that works. But what I find interesting is that we can, as city board, provide a seat on the table, but this is young people not taking a seat at the table, but demanding a seat at the table and taking a stand. And I like that, because I think that's in a sense, that's what emancipation is all about.
Thank you. And how could this also help your policy? Do you think it is supporting some of the things you stand for?
Yeah, I think it's very supporting. I think that the question raised in the manifesto, when it comes to climate justice, when it comes to democratization, or when it comes to digital rights, human rights, these are very relevant, very up to these are the discussions of today. And of course, for me, it's very relevant what young people have to say on it. And I would like to elaborate on that even more, because I think that in a way, maybe sometimes the voices of young people aren't heard that much, and manifesto like this helps me to even broader, to broaden the base on which policy is made.
And some of the remarks in the manifesto also relate to democratization. What did you think about that? Especially, I think the whole idea of the impact of future generations, for example. What do you think about that we include that in our policy?
I was very fond with the focus on democratization, because I think that democratization and living in a democratic system has sometimes is taken for granted way too much. So rethinking democracy and thinking about democratization is something that I find very positive that it starts. But this concept of engaging future interests well, it puzzled me, and I'm very enthusiastic about it. And in a sense, it made me also think of Greta Thunberg, and I think that it's an approach that is very interesting. Because for me, as a politician, I'm always trying to think that we should take care of the world, not only for my own generation, but for future generations. But this also goes for a lot of other policy issues. And I was I'm not quite sure how to implicate that directly, but the concept and the idea is very interesting and very inspiring, because it might even mean that sometimes the measurements you take aren't that sustainable when you look at it even closer from this perspective. So I think that's a very interesting proposal, but you really should help me how to make it effective.
Now we will make use of this invitation and think about how this could influence the local policy of Amsterdam. Absolutely.
That would be great.
Yeah, and do you have any further feedback or remarks that you think of that's important for us to take into account? That you think that's maybe something that you forgot, or this is something that you should go. No, maybe this about the future generation. What could be inspiring for the municipality?
Well, I'm not going to add something, and I'm not going to say that this should be different or this should be this or that. This invitation stands, and I really think it would be interesting to give it thought how to do that. But maybe my main remark would be, this is great to have a manifesto. It's great to try to influence local and national and European politics. But you are local, national and European politics. And claim your seat at the table, make yourself heard, be visible, and also claim a position. Because I think that a lot of young people are sometimes or too busy or too reluctant to be part of the democratic process. And I think that if you are enthusiastic about writing this fantastic manifesto, be enthusiastic to make democratization in your neighborhood, in your city, and wherever you want. Engagement. This engagement on the society is such a great thing, and please try to express that in multiple forms, because somebody has to keep an eye on guys like me.
Yes, thank you. So actually, you say also you should explore the way to the traditional politics, not only action, not only activism,
not only traditional politics. Try to reinvent politics. Try to reinvent democracy, and try to reinvent activism. I think that is what we need. On a more personal note, I think that party politics is coming to an end, and we need young people to reinvent the way that we as society, on a democratic, in a democratic form, in a democratic discussion, try to reshape our society as such.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your time. And we will make
stands.
We will make use of it. Absolutely.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, have a good evening. Bye.
Bye-bye.
So that was the reaction by Alderman Rutger Groot-Wassink for the Greens in Amsterdam. I think an invitation that you could never neglect. If somebody says, invite me to think along, it's not about accepting the offer to take the seat, but take the table and make him join you on the table afterwards, no, students? I would say so. Then there is two other people that are going to react to the manifesto. These are Caroline Combeem, an urban planner and senior advisor to the city of Amsterdam, working for what in Dutch we call the Omgevingsvisie 2050, which would translate into a strategy on spatial planning and the environment 2050. Welcome. And Bas Wiers, community builder and coordinator of the network Vreedzaam Oost, an organization aiming to make Amsterdam East a practice ground for democratic citizenship. Both of them have been slightly involved with the coming of age and the training of this manifesto. So I will be very direct and ask them, how will this manifesto contribute to your work in the city? And Caroline, may I start with you?
Wait, unmute. Yeah. Well, thank you. When I was reading the manifesto and your question, I thought a better question might be, how does it not contribute? Because firstly, I'm very honored to receive the manifesto, and I'm very impressed by the cooperation of its makers and the contents and the insights and the carefulness which it has been drafted. So congratulations on that. And we are working on this vision for the spatial and environmental development. And what we try to do is make an integrated strategy where several important issues which are currently important and crucial for the future are all taken together. And I see a lot of the manifesto reflected in the work we're already doing. So that makes me happy. Like the call for a healthy environment, green spaces, pedestrian spaces, and clean air. I am a geographer, so that appeals to me, of course.
Yeah.
They're completely in line, as well as the call for climate action and justice. And to achieve the latter, the city of Amsterdam is working with Kate Raworth, with her model of the donut economy.
The donut economy.
Yeah, to make Amsterdam a thriving place for everyone. And I was very touched also by the subject of this cooperation, of working with people from bottom up. So, and this is what we've been trying to do. This is what my work is, participation with the city for making this vision. And we have like a special women's advisory board. And we also have made several calls together with young people to ask them in depth what they want, because they are the future. And the goal is not only to make this plan with as many possible people as possible, but also to pave the way for this inclusive and participatory way of city building and management. So our work doesn't stop when the vision has been accepted by the council, but it starts, and it starts from in every part of our organization. So for me, it's not, I'm a civil servant, I make a plan, what do you think? No, there's something that needs to be done. Let's start together. How could we solve it? What is needed together with people in neighborhoods? So co-creation and cooperation. And I personally do appreciate and support the call for younger delegates in the local municipalities. I think essential.
Good. Then for Bas, let me not repeat the question, because I think how it's going to contribute it will contribute a lot. How will it complicate your work? Because there's a lot at stake, what is being called forward in the manifesto. What are things that might be making your work even a little bit harder if you would like to fulfill those calls into action?
Oh, I'm not so sure, because I don't think it makes it harder, because this is a call for action that I've been working on, and I really, really want to thank all the participants for the focus on the future generations, because that's what we've been working on with kids councils and youth councils in Amsterdam East. So this is my work. This is looking like every organization at every point, how can you bring in the kids to talk about their role in it? Whether it's a municipality house, whether it's a soccer club, you know, everywhere they should be represented within those kind of local politics. And because democracy is not only municipality, it's not only government, it's also how can you decide on what's happening in your school? How can you have a voice in what's happening at the chess club where you go to? So for me, it doesn't complicate things. It makes it easier by showing also what happens if you give a voice to young people, because this is such a powerful document. It's proving how interesting it is to, well, give the seat at the table, so to say.
Okay, so it is actually only to be applauded. Then if this is the case, how come it is Netwerk Democratie who initiated this manifesto for the future and not the city of Amsterdam or the specific neighborhood of Amsterdam? I mean, why does it need to be Netwerk Democratie inviting the students and other youngsters to write such a manifesto and not you?
You're asking me?
I'm asking you both. Sorry.
Okay. I think for me, it's good to have this, because we're talking about bottom up and it's happening, but also to join this to the bigger issues that's going around. You know, sometimes Amsterdam East, because that's what I can talk about, feels like its own republic in this world, forgetting that there even is a city of Amsterdam, there is a province, there's a country, and even there's the European Union, and forgetting that we are dealing with things that other people are dealing with in Milan, in London, in small villages, in, I don't know. So I think the broader perspective brought by this project is really useful for us to not just keep focusing on our own little issues and take it to the next level.
Thank you. Caroline, may I ask you the same question?
Yes.
The scope that Bas is addressing, is it something that surprises you too?
Sorry, what was your last remark?
The scope that Bas is referring to, because of course this manifesto is about a lot more than just policy making at the local level. Might that be the reason that you have not invited future generations or present generations to write such a manifesto?
Well, in a way, I mean, working on the vision for the city, we did maybe not ask young people to write a manifesto, but they certainly had a voice in the whole process of making it. Like I said, we had 1 big and 4 smaller meetings with young people in the Amsterdam Southeast and New West and other parts of the city, North, where we talked with them. It was organized by them and we asked them to organize it, and then we talked with them to see what was important for them. And of course, like Bas said, those are more local issues, but some of the issues that you address in the manifesto we recognize as well. So in a way, they met their manifesto, but then in a Zoom meeting, Zoom meetings. And one of the people even said to me afterwards, hey, do you involve young people in your process of making this? And I said, yes, because we're talking to you now. She said, no, I want to be at a table writing it. And I thought, yeah, you have a good point. You should be.
Goodies. So we have very little time. What is one of the concrete points that the student presented that you thought, I did not think of this, but I really would like to take this along into my future activities? Bas, may I start with you?
Well, for me, there wasn't one that sprang up because I'm going to give the manifesto to the kids and the youth I'm going to work with in the councils, and they have to decide which one they want to pick out and want to focus on. So I'm going to just pass it on to the other ones and see what will come out. It's not for me to decide. I'm the past generation.
Oh, wow. That's what makes us that, Caroline. I don't know your age, but I feel very dinosaur at the moment.
I feel old now.
So, Caroline, for you, the final word. Was there one thing in the manifesto that you thought of, I did not think of this yet, and I would like to actually take this into practice?
Well, part of my work as a physical planner or planner is that you have to deal with everything. But one of the things that stood out to me is the statement about upholding freedom in a digital world. The physical and the digital world are more and more intertwined. We actually talked about this with Marleen Sticker van der Waag. And I think we have not paid yet attention in our writing for the future, in the vision about this aspect. So what does it mean if you have a smart city? What does it mean when you use data of other people? How can people be sure that their data are protected or safe, or if they can bail out? And I very like the idea of citizens being involved in the technology you need for smart cities. So yeah, that's a point that stood out to me, and I think we should do more with it.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Bas Swiers. Thank you, Caroline Combeen. Almost on time. We have somebody that is actually going to close this session in a bit of a more poetic way. Atta de Kolk is a spoken word artist and storyteller. Atta, you have been listening along over the last hour, and you've been finding your own words to actually translate all that we have been saying. May I give the floor to Atta de Kolk.
Thanks, Friso. Welcome all. Today, we discussed the future while we co-design it. Clearly, we don't underestimate this assignment. 40 participants discussing challenges that we're facing. In times like these, that alone is quite amazing. This was a moment to present the present and progress, a guide on how we will build along in this process. Why is this manifesto so important to have? It's a chance to get these important subjects on the map. We want to be informed. Don't let them be dissolved, exposing problems, but working to get them solved. So this is what we need, a core to explore and more. Positive thinking, but aiming to be realistic so it's not just a dream. Dream chasers setting goals and flagging these themes, subjects to conquest, challenges to face, whether on or offline. We're in the house, we're at the place. We stand today focused on the days after tomorrow, to be well informed, well prepared, instead of left with sorrow. Fundamental rights, like fighting discrimination, is the base to get a better situation, with, of course, delegates from the younger generation. Acknowledge what's essential, that this is a collective, inclusive operation, a future based on commons and democracy. We can't be inclusive if there's still structured exclusivity. So we need to invest in multi-layered accessibility. Policy matters, planned multifunctional reality, a future based on climate justice. Priorities, economic interests no longer have the majority of people chasing it rather than respecting climate policies. Free basic education. We all need to know that greed is not a seed on which our future can grow. Sharing our knowledge as data in a tidal flow. When designing public technology, especially in smart cities, involve people to also make them big, hard cities. This is not only a task for the government, but it's also for involved projects for empowerment. Democracy right now is having a hard time. People feel left behind. We need change rapidly, on time. There are jewels of ideas found in these young mental minds. Also, listen to the Vice President and how strong her advice is, because there are chances in every crisis. Demographic changes like aging societies cannot be ignored. That's why even more for young people, there need to be more opened doors. What's up? What's new in the news? Is it transparent? Is it choosing sides, or is it being wise like our grandparents? The future and manifesto is not about left or right, but about what has gone left and what's right. So personal, political preferences, we don't care. We just care for it to be fair. 20% of European people is still a child. So we need to get to work to prevent these problems to be piled. So the manifesto exists, and now we need it promoted. We need to go out in the world and show it. Present and express, show that we're devoted. Only a constant repeated message gets noticed. For a future, young voices are important and relevant. This manifesto is sustainable evidence. Even strategy experts are impressed with what's drafted. But of course, that's what we already expect. The world going fast forward. It's hard to comprehend. Stand above our difference to really understand. We really need unity. Why you think the letters U and I are in the word unity?
Thank you very much, Atam. You and I together in the unity, I think it's a very good close-off to the presentation of the Manifesto for Future Democracy that we just had. I would like to also say that one of the words that you just used, saying democracy is not only a task for the government, it is actually a task for all of us. And I think what we have seen in the presentation of the last hour, that actually these 40 students being involved in the drafting of the manifesto took that task very serious. So we cannot thank all of them, but we can thank the 5 of them that were actually present here to introduce the manifesto. And therefore, a big thank you to Sam Sorden, Milena Jacob, Francis Balati, Ashley Mom, Robert Dazovic, and of course to the Vice President of the European Commission, Dubravka Šuica, Alderman of Amsterdam, Rutger Groot-Wassink, then Caroline Combe of the City of Amsterdam, Bas Swierts of Vreedzaam Oost, most notably to you, all viewers, for paying attention. And if you would like to see the manifesto for yourself, it is, of course, possible on the website of Parlement van de Toekomst, which is the dedicated URL that has been called into life by Netwerk Democratie, that you can also look up Netwerk Democratie. And this process would financially European Union. So these are the small letters thanking the European Union for enabling this process. I would like to thank you all for your attention, and I would like to thank Netwerk Democratie for inviting me to host this session. Wishing you a great future, a great conference on the future of Europe. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Great future and present. Bye-bye.